Glad to be here today. Honored to be with you this morning. The weekend was great. Friday night, Saturday, getting to spend time with a lot of couples who were interested and willing to work on their marriages, and it was a great weekend. Thank you on behalf of Lee and I. We thank you for hosting and allowing so many people from the area to come in and be a part of this. The Metro Church blessed a lot of people this weekend. Thank you for that, for all the effort and all the work and everything that took place. Thank you to the ministry staff and the elders who really picked up the ball and ran with it. When I talked to Matt earlier this week, and he had said that Ashley's mother had passed away and they were headed back. We hated to miss them. Known them for a long time. Good family, good people. But I know that, everything was taken so such good care of. And so we were glad to be here. Everything went well, and we're excited to continue to hear how things are being blessed from the workshop this weekend. I want to talk to you a little bit about about family this morning and about traits of a healthy family and kind of what that means. And there are quite a few points we're going to cover this morning, but we're going to do them quick, I promise. I like to go through and hit some points, and we'll kind of go that direction. But I want to start for a second with a story, if I can, about a millionaire. We were in Florida back about our 20th anniversary with our kids. And we went down to Florida to spend spring break with some family down there. And my wife asked me, said, is there anything, said, we've planned a ton of stuff this week to do. Is there anything that you would like to do in this week in Florida? You really haven't said, hey, here's what I'd like to do. And I said, if it worked out, I would love to go to South Beach in Miami and run with a guy called The Raven that I watched a special on ESPN on their little 30-30 program about this guy who runs every day, and he's run every day 8 miles since 1972, and he's never missed a day, and people show up all over the world to run with him. And I said, if it worked out, I'd love to do that. And so she worked it into the schedule. We had that plan made, and one afternoon or one morning, we got over there to the beach and spent the day at the beach with the family, my 4 boys, and Lee and I. And then when the time came for every day when the Raven, that's his nickname, would show up at the certain place to start his run, whatever runners showed up to run with him those 8 miles that day, I showed up that day, got to meet him. It was kind of interesting. I had questions. I wanted to ask him, why 8 miles? Why, haven't you ever had company show up? Did you not ever get sick? Since 1972, he has not missed a day of running 8 miles on the beach. And even up to this point, that was 12 years ago. Up to this point, he still has that record. Still is going. He has not missed that point yet. But it wasn't the Raven that made the story incredible. I spent some time running with him, but there was another guy that had showed up that day by the name of Dave. And I didn't expect Dave to play such a major character in the role or the story. I really wanted to go because I wanted to meet the Raven. Dave wound up being the one that was really fascinating. When we got there, Dave had showed up with a couple of friends who I overheard them saying to him, kind of giving him a hard time, why did you not pick the girl that they picked out for you? Saw you on TV. And they just kind of kept teasing him. And I thought, this guy must be an actor. He's a good-looking guy. He probably, I'm guessing, mid-50s. He must have been on TV somewhere. I wasn't sure, but I thought when I'm through running with the Raven, I'll kind of swing over and run with Dave for a while and ask him some questions. And so, sure enough, after a while, I kind of ran up next to Dave and stuck out my hand. I said, I'm Trey. I live in Texas, and I would like to, I heard the guys giving you a hard time. Are you a movie star? And he said, oh, no. He said, nothing like that. He said, I was on a television show called Millionaire Matchmaker, where they try to set a millionaire up with that can't find love with with a girl. And so we got to talking. Now, I figured out very quick that this guy was not just a millionaire, he was a very wealthy multimillionaire. Well, I wasn't sure in my life that I had ever met a millionaire up to that point, and I was fascinated. Absolutely incredible. I mean, I was sitting here thinking, this guy has everything. In fact, he kind of told me as we were visiting, and I was asking him questions, he had a jet that he flies back and forth from California to Miami. He's got multiple houses. He's got talk about, I was just looking at this guy going, this guy's got it made. He's got everything. Millions of dollars and just whatever he wants. And I was fascinated. But as we got to visit him, the one thing, he was a man in his 50s. One thing he had not had was he said, I've never been lucky in love. I've never found a wife. He said, I'm in my mid-50s. He said, I have spent my life making money. I started doing that when I was, 18 years old in the banking business. And here I am, mid-50s. And he said, I'm just trying so hard to find love. And he said, they tried to set me up with a 20-year-old girl. She said, she doesn't want marriage and a family. He said, that's not what I'm looking for. And so I counseled Dave for a while we ran and visited and, told him and said, hey, sometimes when you're looking really hard, it's hard to find. You just kind of step back and let God, pray about this. We talked about it for a while. As we finished up our 8-mile run that day with the Raven, we were coming back toward the lifeguard stand where we had started to end. My wife and 4 boys who had been down on the beach waiting for Dad to hurry up and get back because they wanted food finally noticed Dad was coming back up. And they all start cheering, go Dad, yeah, and Dave and I were finishing up visiting, and he heard, I waved at all of them down there, but Dave kind of looked over and saw all but group that was with me, my 4 boys and my wife, and said, who are all those people? And I said, that's my family. That's my children. And he wasn't being sarcastic. It just kind of caught him off guard. He said, all of them? and I said, and I was a little embarrassed because I thought, I guess I got 4 kids, and I mean, I told him, so I gave this real quick explanation. We hadn't talked about me. I said, I married my high school sweetheart. Just as soon as we got married, we started having kids. We've got 4 boys. We've been married 20 years. We're as in love today as we've ever been in love, and they're all wanting me to take them to eat, and that's my job as a dad. And he, for the first time, Dave kind of makes eye contact with me. We've just kind of run and visited. But he kind of turns his head and he looks me in the eyes and he says something that from that point until the day I die, I will never forget. He looked at me and he said, Trey, you are richer than I will ever be. And I wish I had what you have. And I was kind of caught off guard. That was not what I was expecting because I had spent the last 45 minutes thinking how awesome his life was and how cool it would be to have anything you ever wanted. And here was a millionaire who stopped to look at me and said, you're richer than I'll ever be. And he was right. I had what money cannot buy. I remember we got through running. I visited with Dave. I shook his hand and told him it was nice to meet him. My wife comes over, and I'm still kind of caught off guard by what Dave says. And I said, oh, babe, I can't wait to tell you about the run. Said I had a great conversation. I said, I found out that we're richer than a millionaire. And she said, do you need to go sit in the shade? I don't think you're thinking right. She said, I pay the bills. I know how much is in the bank, and we're not richer than a millionaire. But I learned that day. That day it really hit me, and I've never let that go past now, that there are things in this world that you cannot purchase, you cannot buy. They are invaluable. They're better than material possessions, and that is relationships. Relationships are the most prized possession that you have on this earth. better than any material possession that you've got. And as we talk today about what it means to have a family, whether you're in a family with, if your parents are still alive, maybe your kids are still alive, maybe you got grandkids, wherever you are, if you have a relationship, you are a blessed person. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Now, here's what David, we read this a while ago, and I love Solomon, what Solomon says, unless the Lord builds the house. Psalm 127 is kind of the Morgan family themed chapter. My kids all know this. My wife knows this. I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a minute, but it's just Psalm 127 has always been our family's chapter because there's some texts and some phraseology in there that are so powerful today. I want the Lord to build my house. I want the Lord to build the Morgan family. Because if He does, then we haven't labored in vain. And I want to understand that my children are a heritage, or a better word, translation there, is a blessing. My children are not an interruption. It doesn't say that. My children are a blessing from the Lord. They are a gift from God. They are a reward from Him. I love that. And like arrows in the hands of a warrior, our children's born in one's youth. We'll talk about that at the end in a minute. Parents, you're the warrior, and your children are those arrows. Warriors don't protect arrows. They don't put them in a little glass box and go, oh, see, look at these beautiful arrows. They aim those arrows and they shoot those arrows. And as parents and as grandparents, that's our job. Aim those kids and shoot those kids off into the world. We live in a time where there's a lot of parents going, we don't want to have kids. A lot of people, a lot of couples, we don't want to have kids at this time in the world. This world's a bad place. It's a terrible place. They wring their hands and they go, man, I just don't want to bring a kid in this world. Let me tell you something. It is your job and my job to raise light bearers in a dark world. It is our job to bring amazing children who are going to make a difference into this world. To be light in a dark world. Blessed is the man, woman, parents whose quiver is full of children. So I'm going to 2 slides, and I'm going to encourage you to take notes. I've got 10 things, and I want you to catch this morning really quick. We'll zip through them, that are traits of a healthy family. And you can kind of sit back and go, how does my family stack up? The family I'm raising, maybe the family I came from. But I want you to catch these. And if you can, I'd love for you to write these down as we go, because I'll give you a little homework assignment when we're done. But number 1, healthy families display irrational love for one another. Now, I didn't say healthy families love each other. That's too easy. Healthy families display irrational love, ridiculous love, love that doesn't make sense. God's kind of love. God's love doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It doesn't. How does a God love me enough that He would let His Son die for me? That makes no sense for me. Because I love people and I would give my life for people, but don't ask me to give one of my kids' lives for people, right? That is beyond my understanding of love. Healthy families display irrational love. Meaning, as a father, if a doctor walked in and said, your son is going to die unless you give something up from your body that must be transferred to his to keep him the life, and when you do, you will die, no father in this world would not say, where do I sign up? That's irrational love. No mama in this world would not say, hey, you take whatever you can to take care of this child. I would give my life for this child. That is a irrational love. That's the kind of love that God calls for in family. A kind of family that doesn't draw lines in the sand and go, hey, if you ever do this, you've got to get out and you can't ever come back. We won't love you anymore. That's not irrational love. An irrational love that says, hey, my love for the prodigal, even while they're gone, is still there. I still love them and I wait for them to come home. And you spell love things like T-I-M-E spells love, time. Your kids have got to have time. You spell love rules, R-U-L-E-S. Your kids must have rules. You just go down the list. Discipline, that's how you spell love. We've got to have love in our families. Irrational love. We have to communicate with love and grace. And notice it didn't say just communicate, but with love and grace. We've got to kill the tones where we're constantly feeling like our kids or our spouse is being griped at or chewed on. The tone has got to stop. We got to communicate with love and with grace. There shouldn't be a time in families. We don't think there should be a time in marriage where there's ever a time that calls for screaming, yelling, throwing things, calling names, or cursing at one another. That's unhealthy. That is not the way God designed love or communication for love and family. For family. Communicate with love and grace. Speak life into your children and into your spouse. Your kids and your spouse all day long leave. They go to school or they go to work and they hear what didn't get done right and why their clothes don't look right. And they hear negative and they hear cut downs and they hear you just go on and on and on. And when they get home, what they need is life spoke into them. Not the same thing that they've heard all day long at school. They need you are loved. Home needs to be the place where they come. Kind of like the old filling stations, gas stations that were self-serve when you pull up and all of a sudden, or not full service where all of a sudden you pull up and somebody comes out and fills the tank, cleans the windshield and checks your oil for you. That's what the home is. When your family comes in, you fill up their tank, you check the oil, you clean the windshield. What do you need? How can I bless you? What can I speak into you? You can't yell at your kids at night and then wonder why they're not sleeping well. You can't chew out your spouse in the morning before they leave for work and then wonder why they have a bad day. Communicate love and grace. Number 3, I love this one. Healthy families have no favorites or black sheep. That means you never look at one of your children or one of your grandchildren and go, why can't you be more like your sister? God put your children in your family because they needed to be loved by you, even in their differences. And I'm amazed. God's got a sense of humor, doesn't he? He puts in your family children that are almost polar opposite. They're so much alike, and yet they're so different from one another, doesn't he? I mean, if we get in the car, we've learned a long time ago, the Morgan family, if we get in the car and we had our 4 kids in the car with us, we would never, ever, well, we learned the hard way, but we learned after a while, never ask, boys, where do y'all want to go eat? Because you're going to get 4 different answers. That youngest was going to say something like McDonald's, and the middle ones were going to go, that's the last place I'd ever want to eat. And the oldest teenager was probably going to go, we want a buffet, because for them it's about quantity and not quality. And Mama's over here, she's just saying, she says, I really like something with atmosphere, which kind of sounds expensive to Dad, right? But what Mama is saying is, I just want somebody to serve me for a while instead of me having to fix my own plate. But we're all different in a family, and it's okay. You don't shame one of them for being different. You don't look at one of them and go, why can't you be smart like your brother? Healthy families don't do that. How many of you in here had a child that was a strong-willed child in your family? Yeah, all of us. Many of us had strong-willed children, didn't we? We kind of thought our first 2 was strong-willed, and then we had our third, and then he broke all the rules in a sense of the strong-willed rule kid. And he just, in fact, we always kind of tease. Now, we can do that. They're adults, and we enjoy it, and we have loved having all 4 of our boys. But we try to tell our other boys, we had Connor first, our strong-willed child. We might not even had y'all, if we'd have thought they were all going to be this tough. But we never one time looked at Connor and said, Connor, why can't you be like the other brothers? God gave us a child who was strong-willed and said, I need you to love this child. I need you to point this child in the right direction. You're the warrior, and that arrow, you got to point him in the right direction, even being a strong-willed child. And as parents, our job is not to have favorites or black sheep. Just the opposite. You ever want to know how to not do family? Read the story of Jacob and Esau, or read the story of Jacob and Rachel and Leah and how they played favorites with one another and different kids. So dysfunctional and so unhealthy. Number 4, healthy families don't abuse or shame. Now, I am a believer in discipline. I believe healthy families discipline. Lee and I talk about that in our Stronger Families workshop. But there is not a fine line. There is a huge difference between discipline and abuse or shame. And make sure you know the difference. You don't discipline your children because you're mad at them or because you're angry with them. You discipline them to correct something that they did not do right. And you discipline them according to their age and what works and doesn't work. There were times where we would tell our kids, hey, you're in trouble and you're going to get a swat for something that you did. And then there were times where one of them would do something when they got older, and we would say, hey, bring your keys and put them on the counter, or bring a cell phone and set it. And they'd go, can you just not whip me? You know, that was we knew what hurt them worse. Learn to discipline your children. Healthy families do that. Healthy families have rules. Healthy families place a high priority on God. These are not in any specific order, or this one would have been at the top. Our families today don't need a small dose of God. They need a huge dose of God. God needs to play not a part of the family. God needs to be at the center of the family. We tend to be people who come along sometimes, and we want to say, hey, God, come into our family. Come into our family. We want you to be a part of it. And God goes, you want to do family right? Move everything out, put me in the middle, and then bring everything back in. Everything needs to revolve around me. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. If you're taking notes, this is a great verse to write down. It says, fathers, train your children. The word train there is a Greek word by the name of gymnon, which we get the word gymnasium from. That it is our job to train our kids just like those kids go to the gym and practice free throws over and over and over and over. We as fathers train our kids spiritually with character, with integrity. We train them with values. And dads, I'll throw this out here because I'm one of those. We're real good, dads, at training our kids to kick a ball or hit a ball or throw a ball or to do math problems. And while athletics is important and academics is important, man, there's like a 0.0002% chance your kid will ever make it to the pros. But there is a 100% chance that they'll stand before God someday. Make sure you emphasize the spiritual over the academic and over the athletic part of their lives. Amen. Teach them values, teach them integrity, and you can't just teach them, it must be modeled in the home. Healthy families model that values and integrity. Number 6, teach service to others. This is a great thing. We live in a time, Bible class was fantastic in a little while. Earlier we talked about humility, and that we live in a time where it's about us, and we need to be teaching our kids it's not about us. It is about serving other people. It is about what we can do to help somebody else. There are a lot of things that Lee and I wish we'd have done better with our kids growing up. Areas where we look back now and we go, we should have done this different or better. One of the areas we feel like we did well was this, number 6. that we wanted to make it our goal that our kids were comfortable. We loaded up. There were lots of Saturdays I'd say, hey, kids, grab a rake. We're going down to the widow lady's house down the street, and we're going to go clean flower beds. Or we'd have a storm blow through, and we'd hook up a trailer, and on the back of the pickup, we'd go pick up neighbors' limbs. We wanted our kids just to understand that, hey, life is not just about what somebody can do for us, but about serving other people as well. A couple of years ago in our little community, I bumped in and met a family. It was just a couple. Kids were gone, but they're a very poor family. I asked them about Christmas. They said, we haven't done Christmas in years. Said, we can't afford Christmas for one another, so we don't do Christmas anymore. And I said, well, what about a Christmas tree? And they said, we didn't done none of that. So this was about October, and I told Lee about that, and I said, we ought to plan this year, all the kids and families coming in of ours this year for Christmas, we ought to plan to do something for them this Christmas for fun. She said, let's do it. We made a plan. We kind of started asking questions randomly about, we had asked her, said, what hobbies you like? We found out what books she liked to read and who her favorite author were, and some of the things that she liked to do, like crochet. And I talked to him and found out, I asked him one time, I said, yeah, I think you almost wear the same size clothes as me, don't you? And he goes, no, my pant size. Boy, he told me his pant size. I wrote it down, We worked hard and getting some information. Christmas rolls around, the week of Christmas, and we told our boys, we said, hey, we've got this little couple that we want to bless this year for Christmas. And so here's a list of things they need, and we're going to sneak it over to their house on Christmas Eve and just leave everything on their porch. They loved it. They said, this is going to be fun. We live in a small community. Walmart is the only place to shop in our little community, all right? So we're a little bit, so we go to Walmart, and we give them the list, and I tell them, I say, hey, boys, you're buying this stuff. You're not bringing it and putting my basket and me paying for it. I said, whatever you want to get them, you can, but we want you to get them even something small. Here's clothes sizes, here's this, here's that. One of my oldest sons said, do you think they'll do Christmas breakfast? And I said, I'm sure they will. He went and he got bacon and eggs and bought all this food for them to do Christmas morning breakfast. My other son said, you know what? They're probably going to want to eat something later that day. And he went and he bought T-bone steaks. And I thought, man, that boy's never bought me a T-bone steak. T-bone steaks for them to eat. And then we went and we got some clothes and we got some, just a whole basket full. We took everything home, refrigerated the refrigeration stuff, and wrapped. We decided we're going to wrap because it had been, I think I'd said something about unwrapping a present. They said, we haven't wrapped presents in years. So we wrapped everything that we could. Christmas Eve rolls around and we sneak the present over to their house, and it didn't quite work out like we had planned. It just so happened Christmas Eve that day in Texas, I think it was 78 degrees. Beautiful. They sat out on their porch all day, and we couldn't get their stuff. Every time we drove by, they were sitting on their porch, and we were just kind of like, man, we got food that they need to eat, And so finally, we just kind of broke down, pulled up the driveway, and said, hey, Merry Christmas. We've got some stuff that we want y'all to have. And my kids still talk about that Christmas and how fun that was. Man, serving other people can be so much fun. And we just have to teach our kids that's just what we do. It's not always about us. Number 7, pray with and for your family. You need to tell your kids and your grandkids regularly, and your spouse, I prayed for you today. You should have a set time, I think, every day that you pray for your kids. I have a set time every day that I pray for my kids. You know when that is? It is at 1:27 every day. My little reminder goes off on my phone. Now, it's kind of interesting because since I've been over here on the West Coast, it's going off at 11:27 because we're 2 hours earlier over here. But mine goes off at 1:27 every day. You say, why 1:27? Because of Psalm 127 reminds me that I'm a blessed man and my quiver is full. Every day I pray for my kids and my family, and now my daughter-in-laws and my granddaughter. And I tell God, thank you for them. And sometimes I send my kids messages and go, hey, 1:27's coming. You got any requests? And most of the time they'll go, yeah, hey, I got this going on. Can you pray about this? Or sometimes it'll just go past and I'll go, hey, I prayed for y'all today. 127 went by and my kids know every day I pray for them. There's power in praying for your family. Pray with and for your children every day. Play together. Healthy families play. I think we're a little better at this than we used to be. I think we've begun to settle down and play more. We realize now that playing together with our kids and grandkids is important. I do a lot of funerals in my business and in my world, working with 2 churches and 2 small communities, older communities. I've done a lot of funerals. And I'm always amazed because when I do a funeral, I always ask the family, what are some things that you remember about your dad, your mom, whoever it was that passed away? And about 80% of the memories are all things like vacations, playing baseball in the backyard, going to ball games together. It's all times when you play. It always reminds me how important it is that we play with our kids. We play as a family, that we spend time doing that. I thought it was interesting when the Chicago Bulls tore down their old stadium and rebuilt the stadium in the late 90s. They asked about the United Arena. They asked, hey, what kind of memories do you have of that stadium that's getting torn down? We want to hear. They were expecting things like, I remember when Jordan hit 72, against the New York Knicks. That's what they were thinking they were going to get. Or Bobby Hull scored 3 goals, and that they thought that's what they were going to get. You know what? 80% of the feedback they got was that's where my dad and I used to come when I was a teenager, and we didn't have a lot to communicate with. But that was something we could talk about, was hockey or basketball. Make sure you're finding some time to play with your kids and play as a family. And some time to hang out as a spouse. Number 9, we mentioned it a while ago, but model values and integrity. And what that simply means is, yes, teach your children we don't lie in this house. That means that if somebody knocks on your door one afternoon, you kind of look out and you go, oh, they're selling something. You don't tell your kids, tell them I'm not here. Because you just told your kids we do lie in this house. You've got to model that. You also have to let your children reap what they sow sometimes. That was a hard one. Because as parents, we don't want our kids to get in trouble. But sometimes the best thing that can happen is our kids getting in trouble and getting caught for whatever it is that they've done. Sometimes you have to tell your child, hey, you're going to, you did the crime, you're going to have to do the time. We've had principals call and go, hey, your son, hey, get him. Never one time did I go, oh, not my poor baby. Oh, surely somebody was being mean to him. You got the wrong kid. No, and you call me and go, hey, your kid's in trouble. I go, you get him. And then you tell him when he gets home, he's going to get it again. One of my sons, Parker is, he's going to be 30. And I'm proud of Parker. I'm proud of all my boys. I'm proud of Parker. Parker's a high school English teacher. Married. He's got a new grandbaby that we just absolutely love. He's got a new baby that, she's everything. But Parker was that kid in school that never got in trouble. He was the easiest kid in the world to raise. He's the one I could look at when he did something wrong, kind of just give him a dirty look and go, kid, you disappointed me, and I broke his heart. I mean, he didn't need discipline. Dad, please don't be disappointed with me. Just such an easy kid to raise. We had in our community a curfew. Our little community is 11. If you're under 18, 11 on weekdays. Weekends, you have to be in by 12, or you could very well get a ticket if you get caught, so they say. Well, Parker one time sent me a text message as a 17-year-old, and he said, hey, Dad, we're over at Shelby's house, a group of us from church, finishing a movie. It's not going to be over till about 12:30. Can I stay? And I said, Parker, that's past curfew. If you get a ticket, he checked in. I knew where he was. He was with good kids. I wasn't worried about him. He said, Dad, nobody gets tickets. That's just, yeah. Guess who got a ticket at 12:15 that night on the way home? He was not happy. Oh, he was upset.
And I didn't really think he deserved to get in trouble. I knew where he was, but he did break the rules. And my first thought when he told me about it, and he said, Dad, I got a ticket, and he was unhappy about it. My first thought, I didn't say it out loud, and I'm glad I didn't. My first thought was, I don't even have to call. I will send Judge Jay a text message on Monday morning and just tell him Parker was where he was supposed to be, and he was not, and he got a ticket. And I had no doubt Jay, who is my friend, would have said, throw it in the trash. That was my thought. I thought, I'll take care of it Monday, no big deal. But his wise mama said, will he learn anything if we get him out of that? And I said, you're right. So we kind of conspired and made a deal with Parker, and we said, Parker, you were out past midnight, which is against the rules. We did give you permission to stay out past midnight this time too. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go down Monday, and we're going to see the judge, and we, your mom and dad, will pay half of whatever the ticket is that you have to pay, and you have to pay the other half. Leah and I paid $60, which I didn't really want to pay $60, but it didn't hurt me too bad. But Parker, who pushed a mower in Texas heat for a summer job, paid $60, and that was a lot of money. Guess who was never late for curfew the rest of his high school days? Not once. I'm telling you what, sometimes making your kid do the time for when they do the crime teaches them, hey, it is good not to get yourself in trouble. Learn to teach your families. Model values and integrity. Number 10, seek help when you need it. Meaning, if there's some things in your family that you're dealing with that you can't get a grasp on, you can't find help on, you find a mentor, you find a counselor, you find a minister, you find an elder, you find somebody that you can go to. There are books written on every topic that has ever come up in your family that you're dealing with, but you look for help. Don't just ignore it, all right? Seek help when they need it. That is important. Let's look at this picture right here and we're done. Solomon says, your children are like arrows in the hands of warriors. You are the warriors. And blessed is the man whose quiver, this little thing on your back there, is full of arrows. So if you've got multiple kids, you're a blessed person. But I want to remind you really quickly what your job as a parent, even as a grandparent, is. You are to be aiming that child. You've got about 18 good years to really aim them in the right direction. And let me tell you something. I know you know this, but I'm going to tell you all those things that we talked about on that list. Aim those kids in the right direction, and they are going to fly in the direction you aim them. If you're always pulling strings to get them out of trouble, if you're always going, my kid would never do that, if you're always going against all the things that build a healthy family, you're not aiming them in the right direction, and they're not going to fly the right way you want them to fly. But if you aim those kids in the right direction and you point them toward God, there's going to come a day sometime. And I don't know where you are with your kids and your family, but you're going to blink. They're going to start kindergarten one day, and you're going to blink about twice, and they're going to cross a stage as an 18-year-old high school graduating senior, and you're going to be realizing, I am moments away from letting that arrow fly. And if you have aimed them in the right direction, it is a whole lot easier to let them loose. It is a whole lot easier to let them fly. Point them in the right direction. I love watching my kids fly. I do. My job as a parent is to work myself out of a job. I want to raise kids who fly and do life on their own. I love watching my kids do marriage, do work, do life. I love when my kids come. We're empty nesters, and we love when our kids come home for the weekend. But we also love when we see them little red taillights head back to their own houses. because that's what they're supposed to do. We want those kids to fly and do life on their own without having to have mom and dad pull them out of everything all their whole life. Raise healthy kids. It can be done, even in 2021. Raise light bearers. Raise kids that'll make a difference. We need kids like that. Homework assignment, if you wrote them down, take those 10 things and talk about them at lunch today with your family and go, how are we doing on these things? Are we batting 1,000 or are we struggling over here? Ask your kids. They may very well say, Dad, do you ever plan to do that play together thing with me? You know? Have a little homework assignment where you talk about those 10 things today at lunchtime. Maybe put them on the refrigerator door where you can kind of read down through there when you need to. Go, oh yes, we don't abuse and shame. Whatever it is. Honored to have been here this weekend. Looking forward to coming back in a year and a half or 2 years, doing another workshop with you guys. Hope that works out. We have loved this church and getting to meet so many neat people. I'm going to offer an invitation at this time. If you're here this morning and need prayers, if you're ready to be baptized, which I know there's somebody that's going to be this morning, that's pretty awesome. But if you have a request or something that the church here can help you with, we'd like to encourage you to come as we stand and sing this song together.